Behind me is the new Nissan Qashqai, which comes to market 9 years after the second gen car. That's a pretty long time for a Nissan, but it means that the new car should be pretty good. So that's what we're going to be checking out in today's video. Make sure to leave your thoughts on the Qashqai in the comment section down below, and let's jump straight into it. First up, let's talk about how this Qashqai looks, because although this is straight from Nissan's marketing blurb, it is distinctly Qashqai. The proportions look very similar to the first and second generation car, and I think that's probably a good thing, but the detailing is where this car really takes a step forward. It's got this lovely chrome V-Motion grille and these crisp LED headlights, which in top spec STL and TI models are adaptive beam LED driving lights. We'll talk more about that when we come to the driving impressions. Moving down the side, the STL and TI also share 19-inch alloy wheels. We don't get the 20-inch alloys that some markets do, but 19 inches, still pretty big, as Nissan says, pretty much the biggest in the small SUV class. Then we come down the sides, and this car in particular has the two-tone roof. This is an extra cost option, but I think it happens to look really cool, and you can get it from the ST Plus grade upwards. The Qashqai range in Australia kicks off with the ST for $33,890. Moving up to the ST Plus, you pay a little bit more to get a little bit more. Then you've got the STL for $42,190, and finally the TI that we're in today, which is $47,390 plus on-road costs. And that makes this Qashqai TI the best part of 52 grand on the road, which is an expensive small SUV, there's no doubt about it. But does it justify that price with the interior fit out? I think in a lot of respects, the Qashqai does manage to do that. It continues the tradition of having, at least in the TI model, really excellent seats with this quilted leather upholstery. We've got 3-stage heating, no fan cooling, but you don't really see that in small SUVs. And you do have massage seats, which Nissan did say was a segment exclusive, but the Citroen C4 does also have massage seats here in Australia, but they're nowhere near as good as these. These massage seats actually kind of work. They're quite nice and comfortable. You've also got plenty of electric adjustment for both driver and passenger in the range-topping TI. Stepping down to the STL, the passenger does lose that electric adjustment, goes back to more rudimentary manual adjustment. The other thing about the Qashqai range is that there's quite a jump from that lower spec ST and ST Plus up to the STL. And I think for most buyers, the STL is going to be the minimum you want. And that's because the two base grades, which we actually haven't driven today, come with a polyurethane steering wheel rather than this lovely leather wrapped item that we get here in the Qashqai TI and the STL. As for the other material quality, the Qashqai continues to impress. We've got a fully soft mold dashboard up here, way nicer feeling than something like a Toyota Corolla Cross, and definitely right up there with a Mazda CX-30 in terms of material quality. So nice to have this sort of like purpley, dark blue, blueberry colored leatherette padding around the place. It just gives this car a nice little visual lift. It's something different to the usual black leather you see without being too in your face. So I think that's all really rather nice. Moving on to the technology, and this car has a fantastic technology package with wireless Apple CarPlay, but unfortunately wired Android Auto, but still hopefully that'll get added in a future update with hardware and software that gets tweaked. But wireless Apple CarPlay seemed to work pretty faultlessly in our testing so far, and you also get it hooked up to this fantastic 12.3-inch touchscreen. It's really big, a really wide screen, and ironically it's larger than one that you would find in Nissan's largest SUV, the Pathfinder. So yeah, it's cool to have that in a little SUV. We've also got a digital driving display here which can display a full map and is really crisp and has really nice, lovely graphics. There is a little bit of a hint of Mitsubishi about some of the graphics, and that's because Mitsubishi and Nissan are part of an alliance and they share a lot of very similar parts, but there's enough differentiation in here to make it feel like a Nissan. When it comes to practicalities, the Qashqai is also pretty well equipped. You've got this really nice deep central bin here, and there's a lot more shoulder room in this car than the previous car. It's grown by about 30 millimeters in width, and it feels more spacious in the cabin. Under that armrest, we've also got a USB-C fast charging port and a regular USB-A, so it's got both cases covered. We've also got a wireless charging pad here, which is a really nice touch, and the retainment of a physical HVAC control system, which is great. The door bins are also generous, and you've got this little extra pocket here for odds and ends, coins, or putting your phone in when you are chilling out just at the lights. So So yeah, the Qashqai has definitely come a fairly decent way, certainly in technology, and it's retained all its hallmarks like those comfy seats and the really nice plush appointments here in the interior, which is finished by the TI's 10-speaker Bose stereo, which sounds really fantastic. Much like the front seat, the rear quarters of the Qashqai has always been one of its strong points, and as I said in the front, this car has grown in pretty much every dimension, being 30mm longer, about 30mm taller, and riding on a 19mm longer wheelbase than the car it replaces. And that just means I have a little bit more space again. And the Qashqai would actually be very usable for me on a longer drive, on a longer road trip even. I'm quite comfortable back here, even at 188 centimeters tall. You can see I've got a decent amount of legroom, really good amount of tow room, and even a generous amount of headroom under this TI's panoramic sunroof. Those are all great things. The appointments also continue back here. You've got this nice supportive bench with a nicely inclined backrest. You don't have any ability to move the seats forwards and backwards like you would in a Volkswagen T-Roc to really maximize boot space or occupant comfort, but still, it's pretty usable. You've also got a fold down center armrest with 2 square cup holders in here, air vents back here in the TI model and also across the rest of the range. And you've also got a USB-C and a USB-A charging point to cater for all the ways that you might need to charge your device. As for materials, we do go to scratchy hard plastics up here on top of the door cards, but that's par for the course in the small SUV segment. You do have nice soft materials here where you actually want to rest your arm, and you've got decent door bins there, as well as mat pockets behind both front seats. Excuse the slightly unorthodox boot shot, but Melbourne weather is being an absolute menace. As you probably saw at the start, it's very windy today. And anyway, I can give you a really good overview of the Qashqai's boot back here, starting with the 60/40 split fold seats. This TI also gets the divide and hide, which carries over from the previous gen model, so I can jump forwards, pull that out to stop my shopping sliding around in the back. All very nice stuff. We've also got a couple of other great touches, 4 tie down points back here, 12-volt socket, and it all feels very nicely finished. As for outright space, the Qashqai measures up really well in this class with 429 litres of boot space in ST, ST Plus and STL grades. This range-topping TI falls to 418 litres because it's got a subwoofer for the Bose stereo, but still it's pretty comparable with the rest of the SUV clan. I'll show you a table on screen right now to show you where this thing sits. And of course, we do have a space saver spare tyre under the floor in the STL grade, as well as this TI grade. The Nissan Qashqai's powertrain is much improved in the latest 3rd gen model. It may only be up 4 kilowatts of power to 110 kilowatts, but this turbo petrol 4-cylinder engine makes 250 newton meters of torque. That's 50 newton meters up on the old naturally aspirated 2-litre, and it makes that across a much wider rev band. And that means the fact that it has a CVT isn't such a bad thing either, because there's plenty of mid-range torque to motivate this car, so you don't have to rev the absolute tits off it and hear a shrieking 2-litre naturally aspirated petrol engine all the time. And it makes it feel a lot more refined than the old car in terms of its powertrain. It's also a refined car when it comes to road noise as well. Probably you can hear it now. We're doing 80 k's an hour on a pretty decently surfaced road, and there's almost no road noise to speak of. There's no active noise cancellation or anything like that, but it just seems to be a really nicely refined little car that I could just imagine driving, 3-4 hours and not getting tired of at all. So all of that is a really good sign for the new Qashqai. The powertrain is a little bit more fuel efficient as well, rated at 6.1 litres per 100 k's, beating the 6.9 litres per 100 k's from before. There is an e-Power hybrid petrol-electric powertrain coming along soon to Australia as well, which is something to get excited about because that'll cut the costs of your fuel even more, providing that it doesn't cost a whole lot more to buy initially than this car does. It'll also give this Nissan Qashqai a proper rival for the Toyota Corolla Cross that is fuel efficient and hopefully very refined, even more refined than this. I'm excited for that. But back to the Qashqai we have at hand. And the chassis, which across the range now gets multi-link independent rear suspension. That should give this car a really nice, confident stance in corners, and it does. It seems to have really excellent road holding, this Qashqai, really very confident. A couple of off-camber wet corners we've encountered so far on this drive. This car has been really impressive in just how confident it feels and steady on the road. But what it doesn't have is perhaps quite that silky smoothness you might expect from a multi-link independent rear suspension, especially on small stutter bumps that you find out on country roads in Australia. There seems to be a little bit of brittleness, a little bit of terseness in this car's ride, and it can feel a bit busy. This goes away pretty much completely as soon as you hit a big bump, like a speed hump around town, but there is that little bit of pitter-patter busyness. Now perhaps that'll get better over time as the dampers wear in a little bit and they lose a little bit of that stiction. But it does feel like Nissan has pushed this in the direction of classic British kind of road holding and handling over perhaps outright comfort. And yeah, hopefully when we get this back on some good testing roads around Sydney, we'll be able to indeed confirm that properly this is one of the best handling small SUVs, because I get a feeling it may very well be. Speaking about that as well, we've got to talk about the steering of this car, which is light and accurate, 2.5 turns lock to lock. You've got 3 drive modes as well. You've got Eco, Standard and Sport. Sport adds a little bit of weight and a little bit of sharpness to the throttle response and just make this car feel a little bit more awake and alive, but Standard is really good for normal driving as well. And finally, we come to the safety systems of the Nissan Qashqai. It was awarded 5 stars in ANCAP safety testing in the 2021 protocol, and it comes with a really decent list of features, driver assistant features and active safety things, including AEB with forwards, pedestrian, cyclist and junction detection, as well as reverse AEB, so you know that your family's going to be safe when you're reversing out of the garage. You've also got things like blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert as well, and you've got driver assistance systems such as Nissan's ProPilot, which combines the adaptive cruise control with lane keep assist for a fairly seamless highway driving experience. It's certainly come a long way since the Qashqai of old that used lane keep assist via braking, which just never felt that sophisticated. This system feels a lot more sophisticated. It's pretty easy to interact with here as well. You've got all the buttons on the steering wheel nicely gathered where you would expect to find them, and they're easily within reach of the driver. You don't get the ProPilot assist on the ST or the ST Plus, but from the mid-spec STL, which Nissan expects to be one of the biggest sellers, you do. And I think that that's probably all the money that you'd need to spend on a Qashqai. Go for that STL for a bit over $42,000 before on-road costs, and you're getting plenty of car for your money. Perhaps it would be nice if you could get an all-wheel drive version of this vehicle, and we're very excited for the release of the hybrid version, but we'll have to cover that in future. In the meantime, let me know what you think of the Qashqai in the comment section down below. So that's the first Australian road test of the new Nissan Qashqai. It's hard to hand out a definitive verdict after a short drive like this, so we'll be sure to be throwing this car into a comparison with its rivals shortly. But what I can say is it's a huge improvement from the last Qashqai. That new turbo petrol 4-cylinder is a really nice little thing, and we can't wait for the e-Power hybrid powertrain to come along, hopefully in the second half of next year, still to be confirmed. Let me know your thoughts on the new Nissan Qashqai in the comments section down below. For my money, I'd be getting the upper mid-spec STL and saving a bit over this range-topping TI, but I do reckon this thing looks pretty cool, so let me know your thoughts, and while you're there, why not hit subscribe to the Wheels Media YouTube channel, and thank you very much for watching.